This is Football Night in America, served by Applebee's.
An incredible wild card weekend it was. Mike Tirico, Tony Dungy, Mike Florio, Rodney Harrison. Guys, as we were watching that third quarter of the Philadelphia-Seattle game, the last game, the number was around 85% of the 4 games was played within a 1-score margin. So the games were tight. They had our interest throughout. Let's go to the first game of Sunday and the New Orleans loss at home, a 13-3 team losing to the Minnesota Vikings. And just your reaction in general to how Minnesota went on the road and played after what we saw from them the penultimate Monday night of the season.
I thought getting Dalvin Cook back would give them a spark on offense, but I'd never dreamed defensively they could hold Drew Brees and that crew down like that in the Dome. Danielle Hunter was exceptional, and the Minnesota front, I thought, played really well.
Yeah, I'll kind of look at Adam Thielen, and he was a guy that really started off rough. He fumbled the ball, had a penalty, dropped the pass, and then, Kirk Cousins showed the confidence that he has in his experienced veteran receiver and continued to throw the ball to him, set him up, at the end of the game for a game-winning touchdown. I just thought he was outstanding today.
Yeah, I mean, the defense was very impressive, and Drew Brees has struggled against the Vikings the past few times. He's played them last year in the regular season, 120 passing yards. The playoffs, the Minneapolis Miracle, a couple of interceptions in that game for Drew. Very uncharacteristic of him to not take care of the football. He had that late fumble when he was being sacked by Danielle Hunter, and it kind of felt like it was going to stay Minnesota's way in regulation. But it was impressive that the Vikings, after giving up that 10-point lead, first drive of overtime, right down the field, and score the touchdown. Kirk Cousins finally having the drive of his life. Because really, if they win the game in regulation 20-17 or 20-10, we're not talking about Cousins. Cousins makes the big throws in overtime.
I have a question for you. You look at Taysom Hill, and we talked about this before, and this is a guy that every time he gets on the field, he makes plays. Why, as a coach, would you take him off the field when he's so integral in everything that you're doing?
I was thinking that on the one drive where Drew had been struggling. Hill comes in, he runs a quarterback sweep. He does a couple of other things, a read option. They're moving the ball, and then they put Drew back in, and you got a fumble. And you think, gosh, man, I would have stayed with Taysom Hill. But I think Sean Payton felt like, if I'm going to win this whole thing, Drew Brees is going to carry me. I've got to get him back in there.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about just specifically at the quarterback position. I'm just talking about getting him on the field, playing tight end, playing wing, just doing different things, Mike.
The Drew Brees question will come up. I mean, we saw in an 18-hour span, the two guys who thrown the most touchdown passes in the history of the league, Drew Brees and Tom Brady, both knocked out at home by number 6 seeds who were not playing great football coming in, even though no disrespect to Tennessee, obviously the way they got in at 9-7, and Minnesota had a really good year. But it brings up questions with both as we go forward. We'll deal with Brady in a little bit, but let's just deal with Drew Brees. And where is New Orleans at this point?
Mike made the comment that he has struggled against Minnesota. I thought they did a great job. I thought their DBs sat down on a lot of routes. They played those medium routes. They tried to force Drew to throw it deep, and he didn't hit any deep balls.
Well, we've seen now 2 out of the last 3 playoff games that Drew Brees has played, a plan to throw the ball deep, to dial it up down the field, and he couldn't get enough mustard on it. It happened against the Eagles in the divisional round last year, Rodney, and it happened today. And 2 years ago, Drew Brees became a free agent. There was never any talk about him leaving. He wanted to stay. The Saints wanted him. They got Taysom Hill now. And this guy could be one heck of a weapon, the way he runs the ball, the way he throws the ball. And you just have to wonder whether or not Sean Payton may be thinking now's the time to move forward with a different quarterback. And he's compared Taysom Hill to Steve Young. That is high praise. And if that's what he believes, at some point you've got to pull the trigger on Taysom Hill.
And it's brought up only because, not a disrespect to Brady or Brees, because we've seen them both play good football during this season. They're both free agents, and they're both in their 40s. So you just wonder naturally what's next for the teams and what's next for the individuals at this point.
But the league is, I'm sorry, Coach, real quick. The league has changed. So what's next is it's time for those older quarterbacks to move in. I mean, the league has changed. Now you got athletic quarterbacks. Just imagine, I would prefer to go up against, say, a Tom Brady as opposed to try to prepare to play against Taysom
right now.
Hill. Yeah. Right now.
The way the game is
just the way the game has changed.
They were lost when Taysom Hill was on the field and part of the plan. They couldn't tackle him. They couldn't cover him. They couldn't do anything. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was thinking as you were making that point about Sean Payton and comparing Taysom Hill. Do you think Sean's sitting there watching Baltimore and seeing the things they're doing with Lamar Jackson saying, I've got a guy who could do the same thing, and defenses would be struggling to play against?
So let me ask you this, and you go through this every year at the end as a coach as you try to reevaluate next year, roster players. There's an emotional component. And this is two massive emotional components because Tom Brady is 20 years of that franchise. Without Drew Brees, the New Orleans Saints are not what they've been for almost a decade and a half since he came after Hurricane Katrina. How much does the emotion factor in when you're sitting with the owner and the head of personnel and the GM to decide what are we doing next year?
You have to try to take it out, but it's hard. Sean Payton and Drew Brees have been to a bunch of playoff games and Super Bowls. They put offenses together. Brady and Belichick have been together for all those years. It's difficult, but as a coach or a GM or an owner, you've got to say what's best for my team going forward.
Rodney, you said something, and the other game was on, the NFC wildcard game, so maybe a lot of people didn't hear you say it on TV on Sunday, when you said you think that Bill Belichick going directly to Tom Brady to say something would be something significant if the relationship's going to continue. Can you share that?
Yeah, no doubt. If you know, their relationship has been kind of up and down. They've always had a respect for one another. But I think if Coach Belichick, if he goes to Tom and he says, look, I really want you the next couple years. I'm going to take care of you, something fair financially, but also I'm going to add some more playmakers around you. I think Tom would seriously consider re-signing with the Patriots. He doesn't want to go anywhere. He just bought a house in Greenwich, Connecticut. He has ties to the Boston area. Why, if you're Tom Brady, would you want to go out to, say, Las Vegas and play for the Raiders when you're already established? He just wants to know that his coach wants him in New England.
Interesting. Mike, what's the read on this going forward? Because it's going to be the fuel for all your pro football talk conversation for the next 3 months.
Absolutely. I mean, for the first time in his career, he can decide exactly what he's going to do, and there's nothing the Patriots can do about it. He can stay, he can retire, which he said after last night's loss is pretty unlikely, or he can go somewhere else. And then when he goes somewhere else, what's he looking for? He's never chased a paycheck, right? The Chargers should give him anything he wants financially to get him out there and fill that new stadium with actual Chargers fans, not fans of the visiting team. But he's never shown he wants that. I think we need to watch, as we discussed during the pregame show, the Peyton Manning scenario where he goes to a team that says, here, you run the offense. You do what you want. You decide. You're 40 years old. You've been in there. 43 he's going to be. You've been in the league all these years. You're as smart as any offensive coach. You do it. I think he wants to show that he can do that. And I think the Patriots may be bracing for him making that kind of decision.
Well, let me ask you two guys a question, because I heard Tom Brady's dad quoted when they asked him, and he said, it's up to Bill.
That's my
What do you think the Patriots want? Do they want Tom back?
I think Robert Kraft wants Tom back. I'm not sure about Coach Belichick. I don't know.
Now, Sean Payton has a Taysom Hill that could tempt him to go with him instead of Drew Brees. Bill Belichick doesn't. But when you look at Lamar Jackson, you look at Patrick Mahomes, you look at these young mobile quarterbacks and how they've struggled, how the Patriots have struggled against young mobile quarterbacks, at some point, I want to get one of those guys. And you just wonder whether or not Belichick at some level, if he can find one, does he want to turn the page and go in that direction?
It's amazing what came out of those two games, because it wasn't just the game, and the games were chock full of stuff, but what's going to happen will be generational changes in terms of the leadership in the league and the faces of the league.
Quick question to you, Mike. Now, what happens with Teddy Bridgewater and all this? Because when he came in, he was 5-0, and we tend to forget about Teddy Bridgewater because of what Taysom Hill was doing.
And he's going to be a free agent. He can go wherever he wants to go, and he spurned the Dolphins last year because he sensed that they were going to bring in a guy like a Josh Rosen, whatever it was that would have made it harder for him to be the guy, and he chose to stay with Sean Payton. And I think that means something going forward. I mean, I thought we'd see more Taysom Hill when Teddy Bridgewater was the starter for those 5 games. I mean, maybe Sean Payton's got some idea cooked up where he could use both guys in equal measure.
In answer to Rodney's question, I think that's what Teddy Bridgewater goes into Sean Payton's office and says, what's the plan for me next year? Am I your quarterback, or are you going to Taysom?
Or Teddy Bridgewater sits and looks at what's around and says, hey, I was 5-0 with a good team. I want to be a number 1 guy and paid that way. So it's a fascinating thing to watch. You know, another thought on that?
No, I'm just thinking. You're right. You're right.
There are really so many veteran quarterbacks who are due to be free agents or will be cut or available in trade. I've never seen a year like it. And you've got 2 of the best of all time at the top of the list in Tom Brady and Drew Brees.
All right. That's number 1. And there's another quarterback question around the topic for number 2.
Yes, I've got number 2. And what is your reaction? We've talked about it a little bit, but what is your reaction to the Titans' win over the Patriots?
It wasn't a big surprise for me, and I said it last week when we had this conversation. I said this is the type of team that the Patriots actually struggle with. Big physical running back, wide receivers, an athletic quarterback that's really accurate. But to me, the true MVP was Mike Vrabel. I mean, Mike Vrabel got those guys so focused, and one thing he mentioned, don't pay attention to the banners. Don't get in awe of the banners. In other words, guys, you can play with anybody. We can match up with anybody. We can beat the Patriots.
But coaches say that all the time. They send the right message, and sometimes it doesn't connect. Do you think it connected better with the Titans because Mike Vrabel lives in that stadium and knows the deal?
Yeah, no doubt.
Okay.
And go ahead, Coach.
And I think it connected because he had the formula. He told us, guys, this is how we're going to go up and win. We're going to run our big running back. They're going to have trouble dealing with him. Here's how we're going to defend them. I've defended Tom Brady in practice like you always told me. Here's how you do it. Pressure up the middle, man-to-man coverage. And I think he laid out the formula. This is how we're going to win. Those guys had confidence they were going to do it.
And that's the kind of outcome, not that he already didn't have credibility with his guys, but when you say, if we do this, we'll win, and you pull it off, that's the kind of thing, they'll follow him anywhere after that.
Guys, but I think you all are missing what really is the key. The Patriots have had so much success, all those veteran players. They're not hungry. Like, Tennessee is hungry. Derrick Henry said after the game, hey, we want this. We want it bad. These guys are hungry, so they're running through a brick wall to get it. Patriots all those guys have gotten paid. They got Super Bowl rings. You know, they autograph signings. They had success, but they're not hungry like the Tennessee Titans.
Is it not hungry or not good enough?
I think it's a little bit of both, Coach. I think it's a little bit of both. I think when you've had that level of success, you get to the point where you're just not as hungry, and Tennessee looked hungrier.
And Henry's playing for a contract. He's due to be a free agent in March, and Ryan Tannehill, the Titans quarterback.
Well, that's the one. We were talking about the quarterbacks. I was going to go back to you with Ryan Tannehill. Like, if you're the Titans management, that was the perfect scenario because you won the game. You saw Tannehill play well during the regular season to get you there after they made the change with Mariota, so you can go with him. But he didn't go in and have an unbelievable game. He was under 100 yards passing. So you don't have to back up a Brinks truck for him, but you can get a deal that you can work with here for a couple of years and feel good about it and not really damage keeping the franchise in the direction where it's going right now. So it worked out, I think, very well for them.
Unless he goes into Baltimore and throws for 350 on
Great
Saturday night.
Different story. Different story. So it is truly playing with house money in that case. So, all right, number 3.
All right, number 3, what is our reaction to the Houston Texans taking down the Buffalo Bills, Rodney?
From the Bills' standpoint is they just couldn't handle the moment. I think, just the inexperienced quarterback. And I like what the Bills done. We joked about it. I said, hey, they're going to be one and done.
We joked about it?
You laughed.
I did. You're right.
You retracted it,
Maybe you thought I was crazy, but you still laughed.
Both.
Yeah, just in the inexperience of Buffalo, but a lot of props to them. I thought they had an outstanding year, a great defense, and they can continue to build and add on to that offense.
Yeah, I see a lot from Josh Allen as a runner, as a passer, the things he can do to extend plays. And it's got to be encouraging for that organization, especially with the possibility that Tom Brady's going to be leaving New England and the division may be up for grabs in 2020.
Yeah, and the Texans, from their side of it, they are a team that they're almost like Seattle. We really don't have a lot going. Our defense isn't great. J.J. made a couple of plays. Our offense, we kind of struggled running the ball. Didn't have Will Fuller, but in that moment, when you need a play, we've got a guy who can make a play when everything goes bad.
You guys lived it, and you survived it. We only watch it as fans, but that step of learning. I felt like as we watched that game, Houston had been on that stage and knew that 16-0, the game's not over. Even if we make the mistake on the kickoff in the third quarter and do all that crazy stuff. How about the 8,000 things that happened in that game? And Buffalo was almost playing like, okay, we can't lose this game as it was going on. And maybe this year of experience will be a foundation for the Bills to be there next year. And for Houston, Deshaun Watson, that whole Michael Jordan quote that Dabo Swinney famously gave before the draft, you saw some of that Houdini play on that. He was dead to rights for the sack. And the two players, the safety and the linebacker, Neal and Milano, don't get him. He spins out, they make a play, and they win the game.
Yeah. No, Deshaun is, and he gives them, I felt that way when I had Peyton Manning. Doesn't matter how the game's going, we've got a chance. If we just hang in there and keep playing, he's going to make a play to win it, and that's what Houston's playing with now.
Coach, you're right. Anytime you have a quarterback like I had Brady, and you always feel like you have hope. No matter what happens, just give him the ball, get him the ball defensively, get him the ball, give him opportunity.
And I know it was a long time ago, but the Texans did win in Kansas City.
Yes, earlier this year, week 6.
And so they're not, you just never know what's going to happen when they go back there.
That's right. Mahomes' ankle wasn't right in that game, so they are at a different level with Kansas City. But
and that defense is a lot better.
Kansas City's defense is better with the way Spagnuolo had them play in the last couple weeks. But you're right, Mike. They know they've gone to Arrowhead and won, which very few teams usually can feel good about when it's a good Kansas City team.
All right. Number 1 seed with a tougher divisional It just says 49ers hosting Vikings or Ravens hosting Titans.
Oh, that's easy. I mean, I wouldn't want. If I'm the Ravens last night watching that Titans-Patriots game, I am rooting hard for the Patriots. So I get the Texans. They obliterated the Texans not that long ago. The Ravens did. I don't want the Titans because the Titans crave the kind of football the Ravens play. Derrick Henry said it yesterday. We want gritty. We want dirty. We want physical. And that's what the Ravens are willing to do. And the Titans, of the all teams left in the AFC, the Titans are the ones that can match it.
But the problem is, if you're the Titans, do you want your defense to have to defend against that offense of the Baltimore Ravens? Those tight ends, Mark Ingram possibly being back, Lamar Jackson running, scrambling, the wide receivers making plays down the field. For me, I would look at 49ers and Vikings. That's probably the most difficult.
You think the 49ers are going to have a tougher time with the Vikings than the Ravens are going to have with the Titans?
No, I think the Titans are going to have a tougher time with the Ravens.
Right.
Okay.
I got confused.
Yeah, that's all right. No, we got you.
You agree with me.
I agree with you for once.
I'll say this about Baltimore, Tennessee. Baltimore's defense is built on exotic blitzes coming from all over the place. You can do that against passing teams. All of those blitzes kind of go out the window when that big dump truck is coming right at you straight ahead. So we'll see. I think Tennessee is a dangerous team.
Yeah. I'd have a lot of confidence in Minnesota. They just went to New Orleans and won. That's a huge win. New Orleans had 13-3 team that was this close to having a bye, instead had to play that first weekend, and here's the results. So
1987 all over again.
Go ahead, go through that.
I just remember it well.
So they had to
strike
go
shortened season.
Right.
They had to go to New Orleans. New Orleans was 12-3 that year. There was only 15 games. Won 44-10 somehow, and then went to Candlestick and beat Joe Montana and Jerry Rice. They were 13-2 that year. And the Vikings barely got backed into the playoffs. Somebody had to win on Sunday for the Vikings to get in, and they won both games, and then they lost. So
they lost
to Washington.
At that point. So, speed round. Rodney, it's the last speed round of the season, but the first of the year.
All right, let's
so
go.
it's a little bit of
let's see the music.
Unsung hero of the weekend.
Taysom Hill.
They lost, but that's okay. He kept him in the game.
Dang.
He did keep him in the game. I give you that. Yeah, Mike?
Yeah, Taysom Hill would have been my first thought, too. I'm trying to think who from the Vikings. Danielle Hunter played really well. Let's go Everson Griffin, because there's a thought he may not be back next year, and he was at times unstoppable today. There's a thought he may not be back next year with the Vikings. He's older and he's expensive. They got to make these tough decisions.
So as you guys think, I'll give you one. How about the alternate official who comes out at the start of the third quarter when it's 16-0 and decides that the whistle that's blown or not blown by the referee who's standing right next to that kickoff ruling, that we're going to change that and common sense will now apply as opposed to what the decision was by the official on the field. That's a really tough one for Buffalo fans to live with. Buffalo fans always feel like they get the short end of the stick. Just go ask a Sabres fan about Brett Hull and his skate in the crease in the Stanley Cup final, Game 6, triple overtime. That's a tough one to live with because the official with the white hat standing right there where the ball is, and he doesn't blow the whistle and he says touchdown. I got
another one.
Hero.
Logan Ryan of the Titans. Logan Ryan, this all year long, has never gotten the praise that he should have gotten. He had the pick six at the end of the game. The last pass that Tom Brady may have ever thrown for the Patriots is going to be on Logan Ryan's mantle forever.
Wait. Rashad Evans from the Tennessee Titans on that goal line. Didn't he make two plays?
Two plays.
Okay.
Yeah, we just shot that gap and made the plays to stop the would-be touchdowns.
Yeah. Those were huge. I'm going to say Kenny Stills from Houston. When they had nothing going and they're saying, how come they can't get the ball to Hopkins? He made a couple of first down catches that just kept them in there and kept that first scoring drive going.
All right, who will be kicking themselves the most after this weekend?
Oh, I think the Buffalo Bills, for sure. You're up 16-0. You've got everything rolling your way, and you can't finish it off. And then the two guys who have Watson in the grasp.
I think the Saints, the clearly superior team, and at some level they knew, or they at least believed they shouldn't have been playing this weekend. They should have had the bye. If Jacob Hollister gets 2 more inches last Sunday night, the Seahawks win, and the Saints are automatically in the divisional round. And it all was set up for them. They are the better team, but
you look
sometimes
at their
the better
last
team
4
doesn't
home
win.
games, though. San Francisco beat them. Atlanta beat them in there. Carolina took them to the last play of the game. I mean, they were not dominating at home like we're used to seeing.
What about weird. New Orleans and Seattle both did not have dominant home years in playoff seasons.
Mike, what about the Patriots? I mean, we're not talking about the Patriots. I mean, this is a wild card game. They're at home. They missed an opportunity to actually have a bye when they lost against the Miami Dolphins. So I would say the Patriots.
Yeah, they didn't score a point in the second half. Yeah, you score one field goal, you probably win the game.
And it might be Josh McDaniels and those play calls on the 2 plays that led to it down there. They changed personnel. They used timeouts. They didn't get to anything. They were having success running the ball with Landon Roberts leading. So maybe it's that best coaching move of Wild Card Weekend. I love the thought. I love the thinking. I love the time.
I got one.
Good.
The Mike Vrabel using the
there you go.
The
minute 55
the false start.
The loophole.
The loophole that Bill Belichick exposed for everyone to see. Mike Vrabel uses it against the Patriots and takes a big chunk off the clock with the false start. They took the full 40 seconds, got the false start, and then took another 39 seconds off the clock.
It was a minute 55 between plays that were run because the Patriots had an offside to exacerbate it and allow them to go through the histrionics again. It was a loophole in the rules that Belichick brought out at the back end of a 33-0 Monday night game against the Jets. He was quoted about it, said it shouldn't be a rule, and there he is, the teacher. The pupil took the lesson, used it against the teacher, and there's some guy, and I don't know who it was. It's not disrespectful. I just don't know who the individual was, who's behind Mike Vrabel as the clock's running, and he's just got this grin from ear to ear, just like, okay, we got you at your stuff.
The irony is,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Bill Belichick never speaks. He should have never said that. Why do you come out and gratuitously explain that there's this loophole in the rules? Because it got used against him.
He wanted to point it out and make the league office change it, and they didn't change it.
And it will change.
You know what's pretty cool is just being able to play with Mike Vrabel and just see the level of preparation. Like, Mike Vrabel we had a lot of smart dudes in our locker room, especially on the defensive side. But he was the smartest guy. Like, he remembered everything. He knew what I had to do. He would come in on, like, when we're, doing practice squad or whatever, he would play the defensive side, and he would play all the different positions. But it's no surprise to any of us that Mike's having this level of success.
Rodney, I did the game on national radio on Westwood One. I was on the field talking to some folks during the game. I said, what can you tell me about Vrabel? Just observationally, he was on the Tennessee side, and they said, he coaches every position. He walks around to every position during practice. He's so hands-on involved in XO, in so many of those little things, technique, keys, things to watch. And when I heard that, I'm thinking that's the thing I see with Belichick all the time.
But he's not a dictator either, and I'm not saying Coach Belichick is. Mike is a guy that wants to... No, I'm not. But Mike Vrabel is the guy, he wants to come up and he wants to just hear your input. He's going to talk to you and say, hey, man, what do you think? How should you play this technique?
Right time, right fit, right place.
That's funny,
I'm going to go George Edwards, Minnesota Vikings on defense. They did a great job on Drew Brees. They sat down on those medium routes. They forced them to go deep, and they didn't, other than Taysom Hill, they didn't have an answer.
And the final question of the year, next Cowboys coach. Tony, you can't answer Tony, Rodney. Can't answer. You can't.
Marcus Spears did this week.
I appreciate it. Justin appreciates it.
Wait, Marcus Spears called you?
Yeah. My son wants to go to Dallas now. He said, we could be there. And
it ain't about your son. It's about your wife.
We're not going. Next Dallas coach. I'm going to say...
Jeopardy music.
I'm going to say Josh McDaniels.
You think Josh McDaniels?
Wow.
That's interesting.
I think he would be an excellent choice for them.
I continue to be told by people who are aware of the dynamics there, do not scratch Gary Kubiak off the list.
Gary Kubiak
because
would be a great name.
Health reasons prevent him from going all in. But in Dallas, Jerry and Steven will take care of a lot of things, and they'll put a staff there where he can do as much as he can, but not too much, and it won't become a health problem for him like it was for him in Denver and in Houston before that.
Who do you think, Mike?
There's something that keeps leaning me back to Mike McCarthy because of the Super Bowl ring and the experience of having coached a high-profile team, so you're not going to go through the learning curve. But there's also that thing, and I said it here last week, Jimmy, Barry, the championship coaches came from the college ranks. There's something about whether it's Matt Rule at Baylor or Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma that still kind of sings to me. And then the other option is Dan Mullen, who coached Dak. If Dak's going to be your guy, Dan Mullen's been at Florida, at Mississippi State. Does he come?
But Dak's not the problem, right?
No, but do you come coach your old quarterback?
Right.
So,
I think if they hire McCarthy, They're going to need a translator in the room between the Joneses and their Texas twang and McCarthy and his Pittsburgh accent. They're not going to understand each other.
Good point. That's a pretty good point. The MVPs of our season, our entire crew out here, and everybody in the control room, thank you for an amazing year.
Thank
It's a
you.
wonderful, wonderful year. And we got one more show. We're on the road in Santa Clara, 3 Eastern for football night. That's noon
Hey, Mike,
Pacific.
Can I say something?
Sure.
They don't really do much. They're just standing around. Look at them. They're all getting paid standing around. That's the best job in America.
So good that 2020 begins with another Rodney Harrison tour
I love you guys.
of joy and happiness around America. Yes.
That's cool.
So from the man who threw his son under the bus.
Coach Belichick's not a dictator.
Good night, America. Good morning.
See you later.
Enjoy your Monday. Enjoy your week. Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.